Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdicus Dave, and tonight I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Good. I see you got the guns out tonight.
It's Sunday, and Sunday's a day of being outside, so, whatever. Let's get some sun and show off the Nerdarchy tattoo.
Boom. I would show off my new tattoo, but I don't think it'll show up because I think it'll get green
Lousy
screen.
green screen.
I think it'll get green screened out. Let's see.
Yep.
Let's see. Also, getting my arm to twist that way isn't working very well
You can't just.
either. Yeah. Yeah, I acquired a new tattoo at Gen Con. I got a gelatinous cube D6. Working on filling in my
got,
patchwork.
you got two tattoos at the castle and one at Gen Con. You're just getting all out there.
I go places, I get tattooed. That's what I do.
Indeed.
Well, so our friend Chad Rowe owns Garden of Eden, um, which is the tattoo studio, and he's got two other people that work there still that I have not been tattooed by yet. So each year I get a new D&D tattoo, and I think they're all nerdy and they all play D&D and stuff. So
That's pretty awesome. So tonight we're going to talk about giants. You don't have any giant tattoos, do you?
not yet. And how would you really know? It just looked like a guy, right?
Well, I mean, if you went with some of the more iconic art, you might be able to tell, like that's a
Yeah,
stone giant or that's a fire giant, what have you. Uh,
a D&D nerd would be
yeah,
able to tell.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the important part.
That's the important part. Yeah. So tonight's live chat is kind of inspired by the newest release for Wizards of the Coast. I believe it dropped during Gen Con. I feel like.
I think so.
Um, I know it's out on D&D Beyond already, and they sent us some copies as they usually do, which we're gonna give away a couple copies like we usually do. I have not gone through it deeply, just like kind of like surface level stuff. But actually, it's one of the better books in a while. I feel like
Well, to
from
be fair, I mean, it's got an adventure, which we don't generally get into the adventure stuff because it's not our thing.
yep.
Though I feel like, and I'm gonna deviate here a moment. With all the giant stuff, and I'll get into my mixed whole bag in a moment. But I feel like with Storm King's Thunder and then now Glory of Giants, I really feel like I got to get somebody to either run one of those or both of those for me, or like bite the bullet and run one of these guys so that I have a better understanding of giants. Because my brain has always had this separation, and I've talked about it in videos before. Throughout the editions, giants have been varying sizes, and I just continually struggle with how creatures of this kind of magnitude can exist in what we would consider the prime material plane, where everything else is generally medium, and these things are like large and huge. How do you have cities or settlements with creatures of this size? It doesn't click for me, and therefore I don't use giants enough.
Well, let me tell you about this place, Ted. Not so far away, but a long time ago, where they had uh, giant lizards that roamed the land, right? And it seemed to work out pretty well for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they didn't have cities, but they
Right. Well,
still take up a
that's
lot of room.
right, and I get that part. I'm not
Mhm.
like foolish, but giant is more than just lore. It's current, and while their civilizations have dwindled, like there's going to be buildings, there's going to be remnants. And like in our world, like, oh yeah, we've got all these different things that had their own age. And sure, thousands upon thousands of years ago, giants ruled the land and they had their own kingdoms and what have you. And now that multitude of ages have passed, much of their things have been torn down for just the pure stonework, and you might have remnants that exist here and there. And for our world, that's fine. But I don't know how other other DMs do it. Like, you know, what does a giant settlement, town, city look like? Because the scale is just so vastly different. And how is it not, you know, wiped off the face of the earth by other things for the power that giants tend to house?
Well, I mean, and a big part of that I think is that's the reason why in pretty much every D&D campaign world, they talk about the previous ages, and the giants were prominent then. I can't think of a single D&D world where they're prominent now, and there's a vast civilization of them. Aside from small like pocket family groups, I feel like is kind of more of the norm than a vast civilizations that once span the world. It's like maybe a cloud giant and their family, or their clan, living on the top of a mountain, or you might have a little bit larger groups of maybe like hill giants or something, but they're weaker and dumber than other giants. So while they are dangerous, they're not as dangerous as like storm giants or even
Right.
fire
And
giants or
like,
frost giants.
but I look at all these things and I'm okay with, oh, well, there's a family unit here and a family unit there. But how does the species propagate? Like, okay, well, all right, well, Johnny, it's now, your 21st birthday, and you've been living with us for the last, umpteen, whatever. Now it's time for you to go off in the world and hope you can find, another giant that you can procreate with. So, so that we're not the last. Like, I feel like that that kind of level begets, like, all right, well, if there's that, and many giants are viewed as, big, dangerous, evil, why aren't they just wiped out? Like, yeah, we know that some of them are ungodly powerful and, have probably had to deal with some of that stuff. But,
Well,
like,
Ted,
I don't know.
perhaps maybe I could introduce you to chapter 3 in the book, where there's a section called World of Giants, campaign events, giants and other ancients and giant myths. Perhaps your questions are all answered.
I've started reading that section
Yeah.
because I do want to know, and that's why I feel like I need to dive deeper in because you know, I want to become a better DM and I want to, get ingrained in more of the D&D lore. And I feel giants are one of those things that I have a a bigger hole, of knowledge just because, let's face it, when I was a kid and watching the D&D cartoon show, like the foot of a giant was the size of or bigger than,
Mhm.
the adventurers. So it's like, all right, that's larger than what we would call titans these days. So the lore has certainly changed throughout the editions. Uh, After 30 years of play, we're going to see, different aspects and, they've brought it down. But, oh, giants are 100 foot tall and giants are 50 feet tall. And, now, all right, the biggest giant's 26 foot tall. All right, that's still like pretty flippin' massive and, 5 times bigger than elves. All right, that's considerable.
Well, I will say the giants, like according to Bigby, live from 200 with hill giants years all the way up to 800 with stone giants. So I feel
Yep,
like a species that is long lived like that tends to propagate less often,
sure.
and have less children because they exist so much longer. And unlike some of the other races like dwarves and gnomes come to mind, um, a giant, aside from like adventurers and dragons, there isn't probably too many things that they have to worry about compared to a dwarf or a gnome who basically, yes, they may live much longer than humans, but pretty much anything that could be the downfall of a human could be the downfall of them as well.
Right, and let's face it, giants are going to be, you know, on the outskirts. They're probably going to be living somewhere that's dangerous. Storm giants, live, at the tops of mountains or, next to oceans and what have you. So like, all right, you can definitely encounter large flying creatures or large swimming creatures that are big enough to technically challenge something even as mighty as those. Uh, you know, uh, uh, an angry kraken or a dragon turtle is certainly going to make fast work of, any kind of giant. But
Well, maybe not any. Storm and cloud giants are pretty bumpy.
okay, well,
But
dragon
individually,
turtles,
yes,
yeah,
they'd be hard pressed. But like again, that's why we adventure in groups as well, right? Like it's not like just the fighter or just the wizards going out to take on a kraken.
that is
Only
true.
only in the novels. So I kind of get where you're coming from with that, but again, that's also why they're always depicted as a lost civilization or from a bygone age when things were different, and you did have giants everywhere. Because I don't really think the problem is like, oh, how could you have all these giants and they take up so much space? I'm more like, well, how could you have the other races that would be like ants to them? You know, that to me that would be like the commingling would be the bigger issue more so than them existing by themselves. Like, and it could be interesting introduce a campaign world where whether you do a fish out of water kind of scenario um or just that the player races are the minority where the giants do kind of rule everything, and they have like a huge Romanesque civilization that has conquered the world. How would others fit into that? Or if for instance, it's another world and it's just, and you're doing more of a fish out of water thing. What happens when you introduce the players to this world where everything is so much bigger, so much so different. And even perhaps there are a lot of versions of the animals that they're used to seeing, but they're giant versions, right? They're ox, but they're giant sized ox.
Right.
Matter of fact, there is a giant ox, in the bestiary. Like, the book itself, right? Just having like on the surface, 192 pages, one subclass, two backgrounds, 71 monsters, 27 magic items, and that's the kind of the stuff we kind of like from when we see
and
a new
and
book.
let's not skip over that there's feats in there as well that there's basically like two different paths that you can kind of look at to kind of obtain power from the giant heritage.
Yeah, and the backgrounds are the ones we've been seeing more recently, where it looks like D&D is going to go to you just get a feat at first level, right? Whether it's from your background or you know you right now everything pretty much offers up skilled or tough
Hmm.
um, as options, right? If you're not taking like a specific background that gives you access to specific feats. So 5e's basically gone from feats are optional to everyone starts with at least a feat. If you're human, you get two. Which I mean, I know people have been playing that way anyway, so that's fine. My annoyance was always when like they first introduced it, and they're just like, oh, if you just pick one of these backgrounds, it's just better.
So, I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, heck, at D&D in a castle, I did that. If like, all right, if you're not taking, one of these other things that come with a feat, I offered up skilled or tough so that they had that because I didn't want to compare to some groups who weren't playing that style.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I didn't even think to offer it up. So, but I don't think it didn't come up at our table. Um. Uh. I do have like a minor pet peeve with this book
Sure,
and the
go for it.
bestiary. It like introduces a lot of things, in my opinion, that just should be animals, and they're like fae or something else?
Well, I feel like having looked through some of those things, I feel like, all right, well, the dinosaurs are more like elemental creatures, and the the animals that you think are just supposed to be animals, they're magical. They're beyond normal things, so they're attached to the Fey aspect that kind of sits in tandem with the world of giants. Uh, like I,
Yeah, I think they made all the dinosaurs monstrosities, which is weird, right? Like for me, I was kind of like, oh, well, this is cool. Maybe some new options for druids and their wild shape. But actually, I think most of the CRs are too high anyway. That it
mhm.
wouldn't even matter. Like some of the things, like the giant ox, you could do as a druid because it's only a challenge 3.
Mhm.
Circle the moon eventually. Except for it's like the
So
ones where it would work, they just kind of
yeah,
made them something else.
so the things that you're looking at, there's the giant goose, the giant lynx, the giant ox, the giant ram, heck, even the giant tick. Like all of them are, challenge 3 or lower, but none of them are actual beasts, so therefore you can't wild shape into them. But when you begin looking at, the stat blocks, the goose has got a thunderous honk. The the lynx can actually use clairvoyance. Uh, the giant ox, that one doesn't really have anything in there. Um,
Other
but
than
it,
being able to carry more stuff.
you
So
know, the giant ram has got an absorbent fleece. So like there's aspects, of the things that are in here that I'm like, all right, I can see where you decided not to make this a beast, for that.
yeah,
The thing that jumped out at me that I'm absolutely planning to use as a on the regular is going to be the grinning cat. Uh, it's totally like a rip off of the Cheshire Cat,
it is just a Cheshire cat. Yeah,
but I mean, I I love everything about it. Like
yeah.
it's you need to put in an interesting role playing scenario. Boom, drop one of these guys in there. Oh, they need to get some information, but you want to make it a little bit harder. All right, drop one of these guys in there. All right, you gotta tell me a riddle, or you gotta stump me in some way, shape, or form. Like make them work for it through role playing rather than through combat. Like I feel hands down of everything that I read in that book, which isn't all of it yet, but that's my number one. Tear that page out and staple it to the wall.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the
like
that's
so.
the big winner to me.
There's two areas that I kind of went to.
Hmm.
One being the monster section, and I just kind of thumbed through and just kind of like not like super deep, but looking at the art, which there's some fantastic art in there, and the different monsters that. So I feel like there's a ton there that kind of get added, especially if you want to do stuff with giants. But then also I read the new barbarian path,
Hmm.
which that is something I'm very happy with. And I mean, we saw, let's face it, like with a lot of that kind of stuff, the character options, player options, there's never really a surprise there because we always see it in Arthur Cannon first.
Yep. Yep.
But the Path of the Giant, it's fun because it has the growing, the ability to grow, which is kind of cool. But more importantly, you get to throw stuff as a barbarian, which is what I kind of like. Um, Also, I think it is the most damaging of the barbarian path so far. They had
So.
they had an energy when they're raging. They had a die of energy damage when they attack,
Hmm.
and like I think most of the other barbarian paths are like you can do this once per turn, where this is just like you make an attack, you do more damage.
Yeah. So when you enter your rage, you can choose one weapon that you're holding and infuse it with one of the following types: acid, cold, fire, thunder, or lightning. While you wield the infused weapon during your rage, the weapon's damage type changes to the chosen type. It deals extra damage equal to 1 die 6 of the chosen type when it hits, and it gains the thrown property, which you can throw it 20-60. Um, and after a miss or a hit, it reappears instantly back in your hand. While raging and holding the infused weapon, you can use a bonus action to change the infused weapon's current damage type to another one, and then at 14th level, it goes up to 2d6. But it doesn't say like it's ever limited.
Yeah.
Uh, so every time you hit with that weapon, it's going to cause that extra damage. And all right, you're even right away at third level, it just changes the whole lump sum to whatever that damage type is. So you're not even doing slashing or piercing or bludgeoning anymore. It's just all fire, all lightning. Which that's an awesome visual to
Yeah.
kind of do.
Yeah, it kind of has some Mjolnir kind of feels to it too, because you get to throw it and it reappears
Mm-hmm.
in your hand, which is kind of cool. So it's like everyone has a dwarven thrower, but also it does extra damage.
Right.
Yeah. So
Now the thing that I find interesting about this path is usually when things let you grow, it gives you, oh, you grow to one size category higher or two size categories higher. This says you grow too large.
did you
So if
also
you
want to
are
play a?
playing,
Did you also want to play a halfling barbarian, so you can go from
so
small to large?
that's where I was getting at. It's like, all right, if I go halfling barbarian, this could be like what, and you just totally Hulk out,
Yeah.
because that's the size difference that you wind up seeing with Hulk. So I think that is just an awesome visual aspect to look at of like, this, angry halfling, like, all right, you really don't want to do this, you really don't
Yeah.
want to do this, and then boom.
I like it, but I also wish it would have picked a lane and kind of stayed in it. Like I like hate the obsession with Wizards of the Coast and Elemental, uh, like making everything elemental. Like to me, like just focusing on the growing or the throwing would have been kind of a cool way to go. But this is
Sure.
it's like it grows, it throws, and elemental. Now I was just thinking it would be kind of fun to have two of these guys in your game, so you could have the other one throw the halfling, and then they could rage in mid flight, and
That
you
would be
drop
quite
them.
comical.
Yeah, incoming halfling that then grows to huge,
Well, I mean,
and
maybe
then you
maybe
cast
we play
enlarge
the
on them.
maybe we play the all barbarian game and we do that.
It maybe. But yeah, I mean, if I was playing one of these guys, I would definitely need someone else in the group to be a wizard or some spellcaster that could cast enlarge on me. Because why not get even bigger? What's
I
after
mean, I get
huge?
it.
After huge
I
weight
get
is
you.
gargantuan, right? So that's just like
Uh,
it doesn't really do anything for you. You'll do an extra die 4 points of damage, just the same as you would if you went from small to medium. But it just is kind of cool that you'd be like 40 feet tall.
yeah, it would be comical to be like, all right, I'm gonna put down my mini.
So we had a bunch of giants show up randomly in my game this weekend, or at least
You did,
Giant Kin, I should
Giant
say.
Ken. We got to kick the butt of a variety of trolls and mutant trolls and what have you.
Yeah, so we played our Under the Dome game, and those guys were headed off to some swamps, some bogs, to basically for a job they undertook. And last session was basically like I kind of ran it like a hex crawl, even though I didn't like I didn't illustrate it that way to you guys, but like I just randomly rolled for whether there would be encounters, which days the encounters would happen, if they happen during watches and stuff like that. And I randomly rolled trolls, and then you guys were like, we want to find them, we want to follow them back to their lair, and I was like, cool, I'll make a troll village. And then I randomly rolled loot, and one of the troll and one of the things was a Hammer of Thunderbolts, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Plus, I think they have the other stuff in their group to make it even cooler, but not one person has it, so they're going to fight over it.
It was kind of amusing to kind of see this aspect of like having never done like in 30 plus years of gaming, I've never had all three items in the same party.
Yeah,
And then all and it's like, okay, well now we have it. And the person who's got the belt, the girdle, it's like, yeah, I don't want the other things,
and I want to
and
give
I don't
this
want to
up.
give this up.
Yeah,
So I'm like, oh my god.
which is funny because like that. So like I will say like our core group. If I had to say our core group at this point, I would say it was me, you, Ryan, and Mark. Right, like
Hmm.
from back in the day. Like we've added a bunch of cool people to it now. But like we've always played where like we've handled magic items not by who has them or who or necessarily who even wants them, but more so by like who is it most useful for. And like
Yeah, how
collectively as a group, we tend to give it to that person.
hmm.
And this group like is not on board with that. So with this dynamic, they're like, so what if you get to do this cool thing and insta kill giants and stun things in a 30-foot radius? I don't care. I want to be strong with my belt.
I mean, it's a different mindset, and the player with the belt hasn't been gaming with us as long as everybody else, and I'm not offering criticism over it because
No.
like mechanically, it's certainly not going to affect my character, uh, but I feel like overall the party would be better off if we did the magic item jumble, and those three go to one person. Whoever decides that's what's going to
Yeah.
be. Uh,
And also,
so
like, it
I don't know.
comes at a bit of a cost too, because you're like, that's it. That's all your attunement slots. You're done.
Yep.
You know,
So it's a tough choice for anybody to make. So um,
that's all right. I enjoy the adding the turmoil to the group. So I don't create the solutions, just the problems. You guys will figure it
all
out.
right. So it is the first Monday of the month that we're or Sunday of the month. First Sunday of the month that we're actually doing this video. So I'm a pause here and go through our usual admin spiel. So first and foremost, as you can see above our heads, this is powered by Easy Roller Dice. So promo code and link down in the description below to get a discount on your first order because Easy Roller Dice are awesome. They've always got new dice coming out, and you should certainly check them out and add some cool dice to your collection. Uh, Related to the first of the month, we announce our giveaway. Always give away at least like $50 worth of cool nerdy loot. Um, and the way to get in on that is to support us on Patreon, which allows us to keep doing all the things that we're doing because there's lots of fees to make and keep Nerdarchy alive. But you can also get in the second time by signing up for our newsletter. Both of those ways also get you a chance every month to game with us. So this month, from our friends over at Kobold Press, I've got a pocket-sized edition of the newly released Tome of Beasts and the Tome of Beasts 3. So these are hefty books, and they're not quite as massive as the other ones, but it's got everything that's in the other one, as well as a copy of Keys from the Golden Vault. And this is going to, and apologize because they didn't give us a last name, but this is going to Timothy. And I'm going to send out an email probably tomorrow to say congrats and to get an address and get those mailed out. But it is an even month, so that means it's my month to run a fan game. And depending upon how things go, I might very well run my thing that I talked about last chat about my first labyrinth crawl if I can get that up and running in time. But the way we do it is, I pick 10 names, and the first 5 people to respond are usually the ones that get in on the game with us. So I've got Ace, Brendan McLeod. I know that guy, gamed with that guy. Christopher Denzer, Eric Walker, Peter Fendrick, Kelsey, Valeria, Daniel, Tanya Martin, and Susan Wilkins. So I will do that email upon the morrow as well, and we'll get that game going later this month. It's usually like the last Sunday in the afternoon. I just gotta figure out my schedule because as we get close to the end of the summer, there's all kinds of family activities and what have you going on. So date is to be determined, but it'll be determined before I mail that email out.
So, do we know what we're giving out next month?
I have not picked it. I have been remiss, and it's always been like, oh, well, let me pick. What am I giving out tonight?
Yeah. Well, we could throw Big B's in there.
We could certainly throw a Big B's in there because we've got a copy of the regular and a copy of the special edition, here. Uh, so we could certainly do something along those lines.
Which cover do you prefer?
I usually go for the special edition just because it's a special edition. So this one here is what's going to go over to the shelf to my current right.
Yeah, and then we have another one of those to give away as well as a standard regular copy as well. But it's got all the same goodness inside of it. What is the disclaimer for Big B's?
Uh, I usually look at those things, and I did not get into that this time.
You get to do it together with us now.
So disclaimer: Bigby accepts no responsibility, or Bigby accepts no responsibility for injuries sustained by adventurers who seek out the glory of the giants without proper preparation, including but not limited to lightning strikes, falls from cloud castles, incineration, hypothermia, crushing boulders, or being sat upon. Nice.
It's not one of their best disclaimers, but it's okay. I think
It's that's good.
I think the Illithid one is better, but
Well,
in which was that in Volo's guide? I think that
I
was in
believe
Volo.
so.
Yeah, I think that was in Volo's guide. So going back to more generic, talking of giants and Giantkin. Since you find it so troubling to use giants and add them into your game, Ted, come on, let's come up with a scenario where it works and how you might want to use giants in your game.
So, like to me, like I've used tons of giant kin, ogres and trolls. You know, have been regular staples, and in like it's not like I've never used giants. Like there was
Yeah,
a giant in my Curse of Narcitus game, that you guys actually encountered and was the one who was like, uh, you know, teaching rune magic and what have you to some degree. Um, so like there was definitely an NPC that you guys were friendly with. Uh, but what are you thinking here? What is the direction you want to go?
so again, using giants, in the modern D&D world is difficult because, like you said, it's always like the remnants of a falling civilization, and even like I think Storm King's Thunder, like the whole idea was like it's based off the ordering and the giants trying to sort themselves out accordingly, or even like doing away with the ordering, which is a big part to giant society in D&D lore, at least as it is currently, where it's like, oh, you're a giant, that's all you can ever be. You're always going to be beneath, whatever giant comes above you.
Hmm.
Um, so that caste system is what Storm King's Thunder kind of played with. But I mean, they fit really well in as warlords. Even if you don't want to use like an army of giants, but you could always, dude, you could always do a Ragnarok style game where you do an invasion from giants and they're coming from someplace else where it's normal, right? Like in Norse mythology, there's a place for the fire giants and there's a place for the frost giants, right? And they're different realms and different worlds. Well, what if one of those opens up to the prime material plane and you're now dealing with incursions from from that realm? Especially like if you really wanted to lean into the elemental aspects of the giants when you're talking frost and fire, like you could do like a precursor, or the foreshadowing is the weather changing, in a dramatic way or drastic way, like all of a sudden droughts and everything is dry and wildfires are breaking out, and that and like this is the stuff that you're dealing with as the PCs before you even get into the fact that giants are coming, right? Maybe this leads them to discover, the portal that's slowly opening, whether it's from the giants making contact with someone on this plane, like like a cult or something, who is helping them to they need an anchor on this world in order to open the portal, and it could be that the thrust of the campaign is to keep the portal from opening, so that the armies of the giants can't come through. Maybe it only ever opens enough for several to come through at a time. Maybe it's not just so much that it's a physical barrier, but metaphysical barrier, right? And that's why only so many can come through at a time. It has nothing to do with the size of the door. It's just enough magic to allow these innately elemental creatures to come through. I mean, you could do the same thing, especially with frost giants, where you're getting winter storms in the summer, things are freezing over again, and also like maybe part of the precursor too is you could use lesser monsters of elemental types to kind of like start seeping through, causing havoc. You're trying to figure out how to overcome the problem of the population, civilization is locked in this drought type situation, or this frozen over, almost like an ice age situation, and then on top of it, you're dealing with ice trolls or elemental fire creatures seeping through. So I mean, that's one direction, especially if you want to really like bring home the fact that like, oh, if things go really bad, there's going to be legions of giants just marching into the world, and it's like you said, how do you even deal with that? Like, even dragons get nervous if a family of giants move in close by. An individual giant, maybe not, but once you start adding up, that even gives a dragon pause.
Right. My initial thought pattern, and again, because I don't tend to go, immediately to the combat heavy, was to look at it from the other side and to lean into the diminishing factor. So, for those familiar with Dark Sun lore, like there were characters who were like the ones who eradicated species. So, like, what if there was a singular individual or a group of individuals that, for whatever reason, had set it upon themselves that they were looking to eradicate giants, and they had accrued enough, power, levels, magic items, and tactics to find these creatures, to hunt them down, and take them out. Now, obviously, this is not a low level game, but like, what if the adventure hook is literally like a giant who, you know, comes looking for aid to try and get this bloodthirsty, band to stop.
Yeah, I mean, like that is also kind of a fun idea. It's like it kind of reminds me of the meme of the Tarrasque, and it's like, oh, spines and horns and bony protrusions are usually a defensive mechanism in order to protect the creature from their predators. And you're like, what the freak is eating a Tarrasque? And the same could be said for giants. Like, what is scaring the piss out of giants? That's a scary thing.
I
And
just think that
introducing.
that could be a lot of fun, and like you can jack up the adventuring party to whatever you need. Like maybe they've got terrifying mounts, maybe they've got enough power that they are able to get in and out of areas really really quickly, and it would not be in any way shape or form a simple, oh, find them and kill them, because they're skilled at evading capture. And if things start to go bad, they have enough sense and tactics, like, all right, we're just gonna get out, and they disappear.
So yeah, so I mean, there's a couple ideas. Or you know what, dude, you could go really crazy. And what if you wanted to experiment and play with giant civilization at its height, and you were to do like time travel?
I have looked at that aspect as well. One of the campaigns that I was going to run at the Indiana Castle, um, or one of the options that I gave them, was one where they would be moving through time and essentially living in the space of their ancestors. So there was going to be some greater threat. It was going to be, epic level game, where they would be at different points in time, and they were going to have to deal with a threat. Uh, at each of those points, because whatever this, time villain, if you will, needed to be stopped at all the locations in order to like end his reign of terror and stop him from just getting control of everything. But one of them was going to be, living in the world of giants where you're not going to be a giant.
So I mean, like I said, there's always, and especially in a game like D&D, you can always figure out how to use the thing, even though maybe some of us have a little bit of a hang up about the thing. And also, like, I like the idea anytime you can do a fish out of water kind of scenario, so that the
Hmm.
players don't actually know. So when they're like, "Can I make this check? What do I know about this thing?" You and Ryan are kind of
You
like
don't.
very, very do that quite often. So I think for you guys, running a fish out of water kind of scenario is kind
Sure.
of really good, because then you have to
Well,
just patiently wait and learn.
sure. And I mean, I am absolutely just fine with, being told, no, you can't make a check, or no, you don't have that information. Because I, as a DM, like I specifically put that in my games on occasion, so that the characters, whether the players know, that's on them, but like the
Yeah.
characters won't have that information, and they can go through discovery, and those characters then get to see, oh well, it's a fresh look for that vantage point.
So, is there anything that stands out from this particular book that you want to introduce into your games?
So from the mention, like right off the bat, of the Rune Knight that we got, all those books ago, I really like that aspect. um I really like the the giant feats that are in there, whether you look at the ones that are more combat related, or you look at the ones that are more rune related, because there's kind of two divergent paths to really look at. um, I feel that those are going to offer some new fun and flavor for characters to be able to play with. I would have liked a little bit more subclasses than just one. um, but what we did get was fun. And really, I just want to keep reading what's there and improve my DM capabilities. But hands down, like I like a lot of the monsters that are in here. There's a lot of different ways to use them, and that grinning cat, I feel like, is gonna certainly make regular appearances in my game, possibly being a unique creature that just happens to like be the same thing regardless of like what campaign I'm running.
There's definitely something that was I was really tempted to make an appearance. Since you guys are like in the middle of that adventure, I'm not going to mention it yet,
Hmm.
but we can revisit it later. I do like all the additional giants that they added,
Hmm.
um, and also they kind of feel slightly less cheesy than some of the ones like I don't know the double shield one from
The fire giant,
yes.
juggernaut or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that one annoys me. I don't know why, but it does.
So I like there was I was like reading just as we got started, but there was the Etten cephalopod or whatever it was that was you know essentially a mind flayer Etten.
That
Yeah,
is
the Etten
just
Ceramorph.
that is just unnecessary.
And it's only a challenge 8, but
Mm.
it still has the ability to do the extract brain and the mind bolt. So like I really dig that one. I love the Echo of Demogorgon. Um, I really feel like you need an ogre on steroids. All right,
Mm.
here's your guy, and and it doesn't even have the typical dump stat that the ogres have. Its intelligence is 10. So you can still
It's
have
a
a lot of
it's a
fun with it. But
genius.
man, the thing is gonna hit like a Mack truck 'cause it's got a strength of 22. So that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, some of these things like I look at as like, all right, not only do I want to use these things, but hey, whiz kids, when do these minis come out? Because there's gonna be some cool stuff, and I can't wait to have that mini to be able to throw it down. So that page 132 and 133, where you've got the two, you know, essentially Etten, you know, creatures. I'm like, all right, these guys are gonna be a lot of fun to play and to like build encounters and stories around. And that's because that's the fun of it is like, all right, you don't want to just let me drop an encounter just to drop an encounter, but like how can I build this into the story, into the setting so that it all, kind of fits and makes sense. I don't want to like have to smash my puzzle with a hammer. I want it to fit nicely.
You should not have
How
shown
about
me.
you?
You should not have shown me this end Saramorph, Ted. That fits right in with the game that I'm currently running for you guys. And my last
Whatever.
the last game that I ran the one or the one I ran at the castle, I reskinned mind flayers right and into a different monster, and that extract brain thing hurts a lot. and I almost did extract someone's brain, although I changed it a little bit. Instead it was doing necrotic damage instead of psychic damage, and I was calling it a devour soul ability, and
Mm.
someone did nearly have their soul devoured.
Oh, I did not realize that there was that kind of threat level.
Oh yeah, they didn't know because they're just used to playing D&D and been like, oh, we go to 0 hit points. But if that particular ability takes you to 0 hit points, you're just dead. Which they
Yeah,
would
we had a
discovered.
we had a little bit of fun last night, and like I don't know whether you specifically called out trolls or not. When the battle started, but I decided that all right, my sorcerer in your game is primarily fire and lightning. I don't think I really do any other type of damage besides that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there's three guys. There's four of us. Do I really, need to sit here and play spellcaster this time around? Nah, I'm gonna be far less useful this time. And I decided to use a magic item that I hadn't triggered yet, and decided to change into a manticore. What a waste of.
I liked it. It
I
was
could have
good.
done I could have done so much more damage. Like heck, even launching a firebolt. every round, which would have had a significantly better chance of hitting and would have done a crap ton more damage. But I'm like, nope, I'm gonna throw 3 tail spikes.
But you wouldn't have looked as cool.
I would not have looked as cool. So I made the more interesting choice. Uh, and then when we got into the village, and then there were now 5 or 6 of these things. I'm like, all right, well, I had my fun with the Manticore, and then after that, oh, lo and behold, the player sitting next to me is like, "Would you stop kill stealing?" I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I kind of, I'm a DPS here. I'm a sorcerer throwing lots of fire damage. What do you want?
Yeah, yeah. And these
Being able
trolls
to,
were not affected by acid in the normal way either.
right? But like, I was waiting for the fire to not be the thing.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well,
like,
they live in a place called the bogs of the acid bogs or bag bogs of acid. I forget which I named it.
sure.
So it only made sense that acid was going to be not quite as effective on them.
Hmm.
But again, not a problem because that's not what you guys
Sure.
use. But it just made
Right.
sense
Yeah.
for
I
the
mean,
terrain.
oh, I 100% agree. Like, I knew as Ted, I'm like, not that I do acid damage, but like, had that been my staple, I would have done that. I wouldn't have made the cheesy way out. But I'm like, all right, I'm gonna throw fire and I'm gonna throw lightning because that's what I do. And I had a round of setup, so I had Melf's minute meteors, and then you got them lined up where there's 3 in a row. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna launch a lightning bolt through 3 of them, and then drop 2 of my meteors on those two, and I'm like, man, this is glorious.
Yeah, well, your artificer helped set you up with that a little bit
He did.
because just where the web was placed, he had put up a web
Well, I
and
mean,
gotten away.
where the web was placed, where like the melee combatants decided to stand, and I'm like, all right, I just gotta be far enough away that they're not gonna charge me, and then I'll be fine. Because if they come at me, I'm done. I got a 15 armor class. There's no way they're missing that, and I'm a squishy sorcerer.
Well, yeah, you've been pretty lucky. Nothing has had really the movement or ranged attacks to really bother you much, other than
Well, I
when
mean,
you counted the trolls the first time and you decided to make
I'm
yourself
like,
a
I,
target.
I'm gonna be a manicore, and I'm gonna fly into the sky, and all 3 of them like, I'm gonna throw a javelin at you, and they did
Yeah.
they did almost half my hit points in that one round. But I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be up here.
Yeah. So we
But
ended. I was just
God,
gonna say we ended the session with you guys stumbling upon sexy snake cultists performing some kind of ritual. It's definitely not a
yeah,
troll.
I'm eager to see what that's all about. You described the snake altar being covered in not only snakes but loot and treasure. I'm like, all right,
I know
let's see.
Ted's weakness.
Well, I mean, Vel is my character. Like, he's prepared to just like, all right, let's go up and have a conversation with these people and see what information we can kind of get. But I also know the party is totally going to be down for loot and always down for combat. So, I have a funny feeling of where it's going to go. But I'm willing to play the character of like, well, let's have a conversation first and see what's going on here. And if it leads to problems, it leads to problems.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. You know, I'm looking forward to this conversation with the sexy snake cultists.
Well, I mean, every time you throw out there sexy, it's like, always gotta keep in mind with this character, he's asexual, so he doesn't have to worry about that nonsense.
Oh,
Whether he
son of
gets
a bitch.
affected by mind affecting stuff, that's
That's
fine.
completely different.
Playing a sorcerer, around the same time that I was playing Galason, I wanted to separate the two from a role playing standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, I did not want to just recreate Sin in
Mm.
another direction. So I'm like, well, he's in a vastly different setting, a vastly different type of character, but he's a spellcaster and attractive. I don't want to. Yeah, let's make the break. So there's been numerous jokes of like, well, do you have the equipment? I'm like, oh, it's there. It's just no interest.
So, on that note, Zargon has a question, and this actually came up in some of our games. If a character had a portable hole, what type of giant lair would you infiltrate, and what would you pilfer? I think it would definitely be a sea giant and everything, because that's what we did. Ted, oh yeah, you have the mini.
It's-
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, the my we live on a boat game. I have that awesome mini that I purchased from Reaper. Um, they did a game where their ship had been destroyed and they washed up ashore. And I'm like, well, here's the chance for them to get a new boat. But I love the idea of like, oh well, the ship in the bottle. So
yeah.
like they'll get to choose. Like if they can figure out, and it wasn't like it wasn't a deep dive. It wasn't super hard to figure out. Oh look, we need a new boat to get away from here. And look, there are boats and bottles. We have intelligent people. We can figure this stuff out. And that's how they wound up getting the squid ship from the Spelljammer book.
Yeah, there was also a plaque that said, "In case you need shipwreck glass."
Was there?
No,
I
I'm
don't I
being
don't remember
facetious.
I'm like I don't remember putting that in there.
No, I just interjected it. So yeah, but also we do have a portable hole, and but I think we initially got that to use. It was like a Eye of the Deep or it wasn't a beholder, but I don't it wasn't
Yeah,
really an Eye of the Deep
he's
either.
not over here anymore. He got moved. Um, yeah,
Was
Eye
that
of the Deep.
that was the mini? But you
The
made like a custom monster, right?
I did. I don't. I'd have to like relook at that document to find out what I had done. But he was essentially like a monster pirate. So like he actually, the not that I had one for the mini, but he had a pirate hat that got stolen from him and everything. Uh, but he had a whole bunch of stuff in his hoard along with the medicine that they needed uh, to actually like I call it medicine, but it was like more like a detox and an anti-curse scenario to fix some of the people on the ship.
And then I believe the person that loaned us the portable hole conveniently died.
I don't know if he conveniently died or if they like didn't ask for it back or if it was like in all the hubbub of like after you got it, it was
No,
shortly
no, he
thereafter that the
they died because we gave because it was the ship's mage, and we
okay.
promoted the artificer, the turtle artificer, to his position after he died.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't really magic like that. That's good enough, close enough for us. uh,
I felt I felt in order to keep the threat level high, that it's like, all right, I don't want you guys getting too cushy with anybody. I want everybody to understand that at any point in time, any of these NPCs could go.
Listen, anytime they loan us magic items, that's fine. I forget the ship mage's name, but I'm sure he would have wanted me to have that.
I've got that name on the list as a strike through because he's no longer around.
Yeah, yeah, that is what happens. Well, sadly, it is that time already. So I think we covered everything we needed to.
Yeah,
In the
go
in the
go
different ways.
sign up for Patreon so that you can get access to the book. Sign up for the newsletter so you can get access to those giveaways and those games.
Yep. And with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.